ladies and gentlemen, we are starting section 1 of chapter 5.
Yay.
Chapter 4 was about rights, and really, we jumped the articles and we went straight to the amendments. Chapter 5 comes back towards the front of the Constitution and begins to deal with the articles. And as I said to you, and I've said to you on a number of occasions, an article is to the Constitution is what? Yes?
A chapter is to a book.
A chapter is to a book. So, the first one we're going to deal with is chapter number 1. Now, I want you, obviously you're going to be too far away from actually reading, you can move it, from actually reading. This is a copy, a small copy of the Constitution.
That's not the whole thing.
Now, this is the whole thing. This is the whole Constitution. Obviously, it doesn't include the amendments, but this is the original document that they went to Philadelphia to write. And what I'd like for you to do, and the mental note that I want you to play is, this is Article 1. This entire first column is Article 1. Article 1 is about Congress. This smaller, but still fairly large, section is Article 2. Article 2 is about the executive branch. Notice, in comparison to Article 1, that Article 2 is considerably smaller. This is Article 3. Considerably smaller than Article 2, and a very small fraction of Article 1. Article 3 is about the Supreme Court. Okay. Now, the question arises, why is Article 1 so big? Why does it take so much space? Yes?
Congress is very important in society.
It is based on, a portion of it, you're right, is about importance. Franco, did you raise your hand?
Yes, but you already answered the question. The question I was going to answer.
You were going to say importance.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Gavin.
Because you need the Congress is like the main one, and for the other articles you need the.
It's the main one. Well, let me ask you something, Lacey. You are writing an essay, and you have to write 8 paragraphs because you guys misbehaved, and you asked me too many times how many paragraphs are in an essay, and I got upset, and I said 8 paragraphs. So now you've got 8 paragraphs.
That actually happened.
I know that.
Yeah,
It's your birthday.
I told you yesterday.
Not 8.
Okay, shh.
All
Okay,
right.
Thank God
so
we
next,
did 6, sorry.
now you have 8 paragraphs to write. Now, when you're finished, you've got your 8 paragraphs. Which one do you think is going to be your longest and biggest paragraph?
Your
Fourth.
first.
The second one.
Your first
You're
one.
fourth.
Okay, generally, human nature suggests
The
that
second one.
you write the most at the beginning. And then towards the end, paragraph 8, you're kind of
Yikes.
drawing straws and kind of saying the same thing you said in 1 all over again, but in a different way. Okay? Because I've read
Yeah,
your
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
My
right.
life.
I've read your stuff. I know how you write. But, shh, listen. It isn't because you are you. And you are special because you are you. However, it's human nature. We write first what we know most about. They wrote first what they knew most about, and they wrote a lot about what they knew. And then as they knew less and less, they got smaller and smaller as we go along. The last one, Article 7, is 1 sentence. It doesn't even go, it's 1 word beyond the margin. 1 word. That's it. So, clearly when you compare it to Article 1, it's not even worth mentioning. They're all very important. But in their opinion, 1 was very important and 1 they knew most about. Now, before we actually get into what it says,
Hey.
before we actually get into what it says, I want to talk a little bit.
Teachers, please excuse the interruption. Would Heinz Tap please report to Studio 1? Heinz Tap, Studio 1.
So Article 1 is clear now.
I want to talk a little bit about the First Continental Congress. When the colonies were beginning to have difficulty with England, they sent one representative from each colony to discuss with each other what to do. So the First Continental Congress had a couple of objectives. Objective number one, it was a gathering of people to decide and determine what to do. What was the problem? What was the background? The background was money. You'll find that people fight and disagree a lot about money, and as you get older, that reality becomes more and more real to you. They were arguing about money. What had happened, to give you a little bit of background, is England had been involved in a lot of wars. And war, especially if you've listened to a lot of the CNN stuff, war is very expensive. Guns and bullets and uniforms and soldiers and food are very expensive. And England had been fighting for a very long time. And among those fights, England sent an army to the Americas to fight the French here. That war was called the French and Indian War. Now, in the French and Indian War, England continued a fight that had started in Europe, but was ending here. And in order to have soldiers here, England needed to pay them. And it was very expensive to support an army overseas. It isn't like we're going to go fight people in Hialeah. We got to go fight people around the world. And at that time, the world was a lot bigger, and I mean because distances.
I apologize, teachers. With dance mastery, those who are dancing in the 3 o'clock shows, please report to the conservatory to get changed. Dance mastery, those who are performing in the 3 o'clock show, please report to the conservatory. Thank you.
All right, so it was very expensive. And at the end of the war, England wanted the colonies to participate in paying for it. At that time, England collected taxes the same way that some taxes are collected today. As a matter of fact, the way you pay, and I'm not talking about your parent, the way you pay taxes is very similar to the way England paid taxes. When you go buy a hamburger, the hamburgers cost $1 at McDonald's if you go on a Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you pay you pay $1.07. The cost of the hamburger is $1, but you pay 7 cents that's collected by McDonald's, but those 7 cents are sent to the state of Florida as a sales tax. It's a way that the state of Florida collects taxes from you. Anything that you buy during the Christmas holidays, if you go to the store, there's going to be a 7% tax that's paid, collected by whoever you're buying from, and paid to the state. Well, back then, England placed taxes on things. When you went to buy that thing, it cost $1 plus whatever the tax was. Among the things that England collected taxes on was on, they called it the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act is simply this. Anytime you needed official paper, that official paper had to have an official stamp of the government. Okay? That official stamp of the government, you had to buy. That's the stamp tax. Okay? Placing the little stamp on the paper cost you a certain amount of money. In addition to that, when you went to buy tea, tea was taxed. Why? Because a lot of people bought tea. And it was a good way of getting a lot of people to pay taxes. So you went to buy your tea for your tea time, because remember, the American colonies at that time were British. And British drink tea at tea time. So when you bought your tea, you paid a certain amount that was collected to go to the British government as a tax. So the colonists got upset about it. And they got upset about it for an interesting reason. Yes, the taxes were a lot. And there were taxes that were unreasonable. But that wasn't their big beef. Their big beef was this. You're collecting taxes on us, and you're not even asking us where the tax should be or how much the tax should be. You're not consulting us. on that tax. You're just imposing it. And it's like an adult saying to a kid, when the kid goes, but why? And the adult basically says, because I say so. That was in essence the response that England was giving to the colonists. Why are you taxing tea? Because we say so. We don't need to give you an answer. And that ticked them off because it didn't give them participation, it didn't give them partnership. And I apologize to Chris, you are still in the splash zone. Okay, so if you get splashed and you don't want to get splashed, you can move to the back of the room because I know that I'm talking very quickly and you might get wet on the way.
What do you mean by
But-
splash? Nice, Brittany.
Now you're going to be a millionaire with the word spit. Okay, stop. So they sent, the colonists were all upset. And what they decided to do is they decided, all of the colonists, to send one person from each of the colonies to go talk to each other to figure out what they were going to do, what their response to England was going to be for these things. So that was the first Continental Congress. One person from each of the colonies to figure out what they were going to do with England. Now, let me try to explain what the First Continental Congress was not. The First Continental Congress was not created to run a country. They weren't created to run a colony. They were created in order to figure out what all of them were going to do to respond. Imagine that the kids felt that the backpacks that you were carrying were too heavy and that the homework that you had was too much. And each of the homerooms decided to send one person to talk to each other and then to go to Maribel to kind of represent everybody. And of course, nobody wanted to go talk to Maribel, so somebody got stuck with the fact that you had to go and say, listen, our book bags weigh too much and it causes scoliosis and we have too much homework. That was in essence the function of the First Continental Congress. Okay? It was not intended to run a country, and therefore one representative per state was enough. Now this is what they did. Obviously, they needed to select somebody to go to England to talk to the king and to talk to Parliament. Who did they get? They got the person that they felt Parliament and the king were going to be the most responsive to. Some important fellow that likes the king. Some important fellow that likes Parliament. And they looked around and they said, look, who can we get that Parliament likes and that likes Parliament? Let's send them over there and let them be our voice. So First Continental Congress selects Benjamin Franklin. Why Benjamin Franklin? Well, Benjamin Franklin was a publisher. He had a printing press and he published stuff. He was smart. But in addition to that, Benjamin Franklin had gotten some publicity because he flew a kite into a storm and got electrocuted. Okay? And that's that key that he sent up. And he didn't discover electricity because I think electricity was discovered way before that. But he made a point where electricity becomes an important part. And then from that moment on, electricity becomes more and more important. So they knew who he was. And he liked being British. Benjamin Franklin liked the king, liked England. He enjoyed the fact that he was a British citizen. So he ventures in this long sea voyage, kind of a cruise type, and arrives in England and he thinks, well, I'm going to go there. They're going to like me. I'm going to like them. This is going to be one of those things where I like you, you like me. That sort of thing that you guys are familiar with.
That was so creepy, so fast.
So he gets there anticipating that. And
Barney, I like you.
Esta es Marilyn, la estamos firmando. Marilyn, ¿qué?
Ow!
Can I go to the bathroom?
No digas.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Emily, ¿qué vas?
Can I go to the bathroom?
No.
I need to swear to God, please.
Don't swear to God, number one.
I mean, I need.
I'll let you go in a little bit. I promise. Okay.
Get off!
Okay.
Screaming!
Guys, we're still filming.
Oh, that's right.
We're still filming.
Whose iPad is that?
So this is what Benjamin Franklin anticipates. He anticipates, I'm going to go tell them, they're gonna tell me some other thing, and then I'm gonna come back with their